So, guys, this is the Viking Way, where we try to help retirement agents simplify strategy, grow their production, and really serve clients with their integrity. So, again, I'm Dustin Wiley, and today we want to talk about the three bucket strategy. How do you build trust? How do you close more business? Unfortunately, there's a lot of agents out there that just use word tracks, that just talk about what their managers tell them to talk about. And we're going to tell you basically the nuts and bolts and of what we do and how we get clients to not only trust us, but believe that the plan we're putting together is the best for them. So the first thing that we do see is clients are confused. So David, what do you see out there that really confuses clients and that we really sure up? Like for me, I know that taxes, I don't know why, but people just understanding their tax bracket in general in a day to day, they love it. Once they understand like, hey, I'm being taxed $20,000 on $80,000 and they know why, they know which bracket they're in, they love it.
Yeah, taxes is a huge amount of confusion. I think the biggest thing that I see constantly too is, to use the bucket analogy, a lot of clients come to retirement with all these different buckets and they have no idea how to spend things effectively. So they have their pension, they have their life insurance, they have their 401ks, they have IRAs, they have brokerage accounts, they have a little bit of everything. And there's so much stress around how and when to spend this money. Like, just quick little story. I did a interview with this lady who was forced to retire early because she was a federal employee, actually. And she had a pension. She has some money in TIAA, which is like a 403B. She has an annuity, and then she has some stocks. And she had Social Security and like rental income of $500 a month. Her biggest concern was not even really a concern. It was, how the heck do I spend all of this and when? Because like, if the market's up, what do I do? If the market's down, what do I do? If it's sideways, what do I do? And we broke it down so simply, just using the strategy of, you're overthinking it. We have income that we need now. Let's solve for that. How much do we need to take out from all those fixed income sources? And just let the rest keep growing and do its thing. And she kind of laughed, of like, okay, wow, that is way more simple. But this is a really powerful framework that we're going to go through with you, because it really is not as hard as advisors make it out to be. I promise you.
Yeah, the last thing I said on my last call yesterday was, you have all this money saved up from, again, it's funny, TIA, and she had like $200,000 and she's 50 and she's like, I just don't know what I'm doing. And I don't know if I'm going to have enough money. And I don't know if I'm going to run out of money. I just don't know. And I basically just sat with her and said, hey, my thoughts are CFAs, CFPs are just trained, whether they know it or not, to confuse the client, to use all these buzz phrases, to use all of these technical terms that just confuse the client, where they're like, man, I have no clue what you just said, but you sound smart. Here's all my money. Take it, manage it. And then whenever I sat down, she's like, yeah, I don't understand it. Again, after that, she goes, I completely agree. And we basically, I just told her, hey, this isn't anything against you. You said you're a creative person. I'm a logical person. When it comes to retirement planning, it's literally just like you said, there's the income, there's the growth, and there's the legacy. It's that simple. You have the income, which is like my foundation. If you build a house, to get biblical real quick, on shifting sands, it might be a year or 2 years, 5 years, but that house will wash away. So whenever you put your income, the guaranteed income that you need for retirement, in a 401k, in an IRA, in a managed bucket, in a brokerage account, you are completely at risk with sequence of return risks, with market swings, all the volatility in the world. There's like no predictability. Versus if you build it on a concrete slab, something that could be there for 50, 100, 500 years, like you get the guaranteed income, you get your social security, you get your pension, all your guarantees are your guaranteed income, and it takes all the pressure off of your variable accounts. So again, you have your growth bucket. Your growth bucket can be something like your AUM, your Roth IRAs, your real estate, all the things out there that swing with the market, that have really, really exponential growth, and you don't have to jump from the accumulation phase to the distribution phase. You can do the accumulation and the protection. And then in retirement, whenever you do the distribution, you can be in the distribution and the accumulation phase. Whether that's confusing or not, it's literally that simple. It's save. Now it's time to protect something. We protected something, leave the rest growing, knowing that I have this guaranteed income on the back end. And yeah, she was just like, now that you say it that way, it makes all the sense in the world. So is there anything on that like I didn't touch on? I know you meet with clients all the time and you go through the three bucket strategy of like taxable, non-taxable, the growths, all that good stuff.
The only thing I'll add on that is, if we're looking at the income, and then we'll go to the growth in a second, is if a client, let's say, needs $6,000 a month after taxes, we can create the same amount of income from annuities and different things like that with half the assets typically. So again, if someone's 65 on average, it'll depend a little bit. We could create about 8% income versus 4% from all of those assets. So if we need to solve for $6,000 a year of income or $6,000 a month of income after taxes, what would we need in a portfolio to do that? I mean, gosh,
It's like 1.8 million.
72, yeah, 1.8 million, let's call it. So theoretically, if everything else is equal, we could create that same amount of income, not accounting for taxes, with 900K. If that 900K is just earmarked to pay us like a pension for the rest of our life, the other 900K, to Dustin's point, can now grow and do all those other things and grow exponentially to give you cost of living adjustments and build your wealth long term. So that's the first thing, is solve for the income and say, hey, how much do we need monthly to be comfortable? Factor in Social Security, factor in all that. Hey, we need an extra $4,000 a month. Boom, this is how much we need to put into an income annuity. So you don't have to be stressed about who's in office, who's dropping bombs on who today, what's happening over in the middle. Like, you don't have to worry about any of that. And you can go to sleep every night sound, knowing that your money is safe. So that's the first step. The second step, where Dustin's talking about, that's where you can do more fun stuff, because we have less money tied up for distributions. We can allow more money to now grow in the market and do all the sexy stuff that people love anyway. So that's one of my favorite things to talk about, is by you allocating part of your portfolio to annuities, it allows you to do more of the stuff that you want to do in the first place anyways. So especially when it's guys you talk to, guys don't like safe money until you word it of, hey, by having this amount of allocation over here, it allows you to do more of the real estate, more of the growth, more of the other stuff, more of the options. Like, oh, okay. So if I eat clean during the week, you mean I can have my cheat meals on the weekends? Like, yeah, you 100% can.
Well, one thing you said that a lot of agents probably heard and they think they understand is the 4% rule. So a lot of people are trained, hey, 4% rule of 72. Here's what a FIA can do for you. But like, can you go into the 4% rule just a little bit more so people understand why the 4% rule is a big deal and how the 4% rule is changing? And financial advisors will say, the 4% rule has a cost of living adjustment where an annuity doesn't, but yet again, if you do a cost of living adjustment, it would take like 20 years to get to 8% income versus I had 8% income every single year. So can you touch on that?
Yeah, and just some context. Funny you mentioned this, because we're literally building the webinar around that topic and how outdated financial planning is. But in the 1990s, we had that Trinity study, which basically said that this is the safe distribution rate in retirement based on bond yields, market volatility, how long people live, retirement length, all these different factors. Basically, what they came up with is they said that to make sure you statistically have the best chance of not outliving your money, you should take out about 4%. So quick little comparison, because I literally have it up on the screen from what we're going to be recording soon, is let's compare the market in the 1990s to now. So bond yields actually in the 90s were between 5 to 7%. That's part of that fixed income asset class, right, that we're drawing income off of. Now, what are bond yields? On average, they're actually 3 to 4% or less right now. Market volatility back then was very low. Market volatility now is extremely high. So if we have everything else is the same, but market volatility is increased, we literally can have less income. Everything else is the same if volatility is high, because we don't know if it's going to be up, down, sideways, what's going to be happening, going on, and if we're going to need distributions. Life expectancy in the 90s, according to what our lovely colleague ChatGPT and research tells us, is 78 years, which is crazy. Now it's 85 to 90 plus. So that's another 12 years of income that we need. And that's the retirement length of 20 to 35 years on average, which is 15 more years of income we need. So the safe withdrawal rate now is not even 4%, according to, I think it was a Morningstar study where they did all the actuarial data again in 2023. They moved it to 3.3. So technically it's 3.3% as a safe withdrawal rate because of all these things, which is again why if you use the 4% rule to retire on, you need so much more income, or you need so much more assets than most people can even have saved up. And even if you do have enough assets, it's not the most efficient way to distribute your wealth or have it grow.
That's beautiful. So you basically said that bond yields or bond returns, if you don't understand some of that terminology, went down 25%, volatility went up, and the life expectancy went up. So all the bad things that could happen have happened over the last 25 years. So we talk about the growth or the income bucket. The income bucket is, again, how do we solve for guaranteed covering their day-to-day expenses? If you can cover that and you know that, like, hey, half of your portfolio is going to go toward this guaranteed instrument, and it's going to make sure that you don't run out of money, like, again, like you said, you shored up the rest of their money to grow. So now we're in the growth bucket. The growth bucket is one of the three buckets where you can put your half of your portfolio actually growing in the market. Because, like you said, men and some women, when they hear you're pulling their money out of the market to get them a conservative return, they're like, hey, if I set that money in there for another 5 years or another 2 years because I've earned 20% on average, well, I could have 50% more income. And really, it's not true. So if we can lock up half of their portfolio into something that's income, now the growth side is more attractive. So when I sit with a client and you say annuity, the first thing they think is that's a cuss word. Grandpa's annuity, you're taking all my money, you're locking it up, you're going to give me a 4% guaranteed return, as Dave Ramsey always says, and then I'm done. Like, I live a year, all my money's gone. I live 20 years, that's cool, but now my family gets nothing. This is fighting all of those arguments in one by, again, allocating some of the funds towards the income and then leaving the rest into the growth. So what are growth tools? It's going to be, again, like your AUM, your Roth IRAs, your real estate, your TAMP platform. So in portfolios. So again, on the Roth IRA side, the reason why we left Roth IRA out of the guaranteed income side is, me personally, I would rather spend down all my taxable buckets first.
Yep.
And I think that's kind of part of the overall plan in the three bucket system, is if we have a standard deduction that we can utilize of $32,000 a year, why not take $32,000 a year of taxable income? Why not? It's quote unquote free money. You put the money away pre-tax, they got the deduction, and then now they get to take it tax free. It's common sense. It's a win-win.
You said everything perfectly there. I think the biggest thing to elaborate on is the Roth stuff. When we have those Roth IRAs, that's really the assets that I love leaving and appreciating for later, is because if taxes are going up, I want to touch that money as late as possible, because if taxes end up increasing, like you said, spend down all the taxable income first, use a standard deduction to your advantage, and let all that money grow, because that can be a huge amount of leverage down the line. Because if you have a big chunk of money in there, you're going to have to take out less in the future because you don't have to take taxes out of the portfolio. So that's one of my favorite things, is taxable first in that guaranteed bucket. I really don't like doing Roth income annuities at all, and then leave the tax-free money for later in life where they do need cost of living adjustments. They need flexibility. They want to be able to, buy real estate or do other things with the family as kind of their flexible fund.
Yeah. So, I mean, just to kind of tack on to what he said, to kind of bring it down to layman terms, is why not spend all the taxable money, get the guaranteed income off of taxable money, get the deduction that grows with inflation, and then on the back end, have your Roth accounts, your tax-free accounts, or your long-term capital gains tax, which is 20% right now, but you can take up to 90,000 a year tax-free. Let all that accumulate, and when you need that cost of living adjustment, when you need that $20,000 for a boat, when you need something other than just your guaranteed income, you don't have to pay taxes on it. That's why we do that, which leads into the third bucket, which is the legacy bucket. A lot of agents are taught, hey, the 401k is terrible. Even if you get a match, cut that crap out. Let's only do an IUL because the IUL is the best thing ever. This is where we disagree with like nearly 100% of agents, which is, the IUL is great. We do love it. We literally sell more IULs than like 99.999% of agents, but it's not how you think. It's not, we're going to replace all of your income in your 401k, in your IRAs, in your investments, in your real estate. We're using it just like we said with the Roth, which is on the back end. And you talk about this all the time. And I see clients, like, the light bulb turns on whenever you tell them, like, hey, if we just leave that on the back end, and whenever you get into your 70s and 80s, because you're starting in your 50s and 60s, you can let that compound one more time or two more times, take income from it, and still leave a legacy behind with your long-term care, with your all the different riders that come with it. So can you kind of jump on that a little bit?
Yeah, and we'll address, let's say someone's planning for retirement, like you said, they're in their 50s or 60s, like life insurance makes no sense. I only have 5 to 10 years to grow this money. Again, like Dustin said, there's different buckets of money, and every bucket of money has a different timing and a different purpose. So with life insurance, it's really not something that for people who are in their 50s and 60s, we're going to draw from right when they retire. It doesn't make sense. They have the income. We can maximize it there. They have the Roth accounts. And then what they typically will have is a life insurance bucket that is like after the Roth account, in my opinion. So there's two ways you can do this. Is let's say someone's 60 years old, they're retiring at 67. 7 years to fund life insurance, that doesn't really have a long time to grow. But here's the thing. Remember how we said we had the income bucket, the growth bucket that they can keep tapping into as they need to for retirement. So by the time we even need the money, not that we would even never need it, they're 80, they're 85, maybe even 90. And if we structure it that way, like Dustin said, if we have this taxable bucket, which is the income bucket, guess what? There's no RMDs on that because we're already taking income. Now we have the Roth account that's growing long term. If we need to take distributions from it, it's fully flexible. Then the IUL can be just a huge inheritance to the kids. It can be help with long-term care, living benefits, all those different things. Or again, if we want to have two buckets of money in retirement, because the Roth account, we want to be growing aggressively in the market. What happens if the market's down and we want to take a distribution in retirement from our tax-free accounts? That's where the IUL comes in, because you don't want to ever lock in losses in the market. You guys know this. So if the market's down 30%, instead of taking from our Roth, why don't we take it from our IUL? So if we have all those buckets, what ends up happening is we end up leaving basically all this tax-free money to the family that can go into the trust. We're not going to have really any estate tax unless they're above the estate tax limits. But that's the most efficient way to plan for retirement. We have the income. There's no RMDs on that because we're already taking it. It takes it out of that bucket. We have the Roth for growth long-term or asset management and brokerage accounts, which again gets a step up in basis at death. There's going to be no tax there usually. And the life insurance. If you have all three of those, that is the most comfortable retirement I've ever seen people have. And once they realize that, the light bulb clicks of like, wow, okay, why has my Ed Jones guy not told me about this? It's like, well, again, I was talking in the sauna with a guy yesterday who, funny enough, went to the same college I did in California, and he manages their endowment fund. I'm like, wow, that was a small freaking world. But we were talking about some of this stuff and how most of the industry operates on 30-year-old data. And he's like, 100%, I agree with you. So if you find people like Dustin who are on the cutting edge and trying to maximize people's accounts based on where the current economy is and using all these cutting edge strategies, that's how you can make sure that you're not going to be stressed in retirement. Because if you do use these outdated methods, man, you're going to have $2.4 million to retire with $80,000 a year of income before taxes, which is a huge amount of money.
Yep, versus $1 million. So again, why is the three bucket system so important? One, you're telling something to somebody that they've never heard. Never in a million years would they have thought that there's three buckets. I'm really only utilizing one. The other two are just like for hard times. They just did not expect that. That's one. And then two is going to be he basically said it, which there's no RMDs, no required minimum distribution. So there's no step up in taxes. Your Social Security is untouched. So if we still have Social Security, all of your Social Security is tax free. So once you explain this to somebody, like, hey, all the things that you've ever thought about that you've been worried about are completely fixed. We will not have issues because we're doing it this way. Now, of course, there'll be some differences. If someone's ultra wealthy, you can't just avoid certain tax brackets and stuff. But for the average everyday client that most of us are sitting with, the three bucket strategy is huge. And I have to reiterate this just so harshly. The reason why we really came up with the three bucket, the reason why it's been came up with in the past, but we've kind of honed it down, is one of the biggest objections we hear is like, why I don't want insurance. Life insurance is a scam, or life insurance, or my uncle cousin sells life insurance. Why would I not just use him? And once you explain the three bucket system and how it's not about rate of return, it's about net spendable income, you're going to have that client for life, because there's nowhere else they could have went. Just like you said, why did my advisor not tell me this? No one will tell them exactly what they need to hear. They'll tell them what they want to hear, which is, hey, if we leave it in my managed account, you'll average 11% beating the market. They love that. Like, oh yeah, I want to beat the market. That's the reason why I'm paying you 2%. We had a conversation yesterday with a guy who's like, this one portfolio manager showed me a lot of data on how they average 11.7% over the last 30 years. But then I looked at his fees and they were 3%. And he was like, why would I not go do my own IRA with a 0.2% fee averaging 9%? Because it beats you. And now I don't have to pay you and I don't have to worry about talking to you. It's just automatic.
Wow.
And it's really, really, really that simple. So utilizing that three bucket strategy in every single call, it will get very monotonous. It'll get very boring. But after a while, you'll see that, like, man, I'm not getting near the objections, and I'm handling objections before they happen. The first few times I saw Fisher come on with his iPad and he drew out the three buckets and was talking about it with their specific numbers, starting from scratch, not pulling up a PowerPoint presentation, not pulling up a pre-drawn script, but just literally starting from scratch every time, the clients are like, this person knows what he's talking about, because one, it's just not a memorized script. Two, he's putting my numbers in there. This is me. And then at the end, like you always hear David come up like, we had a client, we had a client, we had a client. Case studies are huge. Whenever I bring up something and I have a 40-year-old male and I'm like, hey, a 42-year-old male or a 38-year-old male, they're always just like, okay, that's me. Or, I had a guy that was in the military and this person just got out of the military. When you can be around people and you get enough calls under your belt to where you can have those, not scripts, but you just have those case studies in your belt, you'll be so surprised how much easier your life gets within this industry. So you're going to ask the client, which bucket do you want the money working in, the income? You can ask them those questions, but in my opinion, just like David said, we want to spend the taxable accounts first. And once they understand taxes, why we're spending the taxable accounts, because one, you don't want to inherit taxes. Two, we want to use the tax code to take as much money tax-free that was already non-taxable. And then on the growth side, we're just going to grow absolutely everything and use it as a cost of living adjustment. So before we close, David, I know you probably have a lot to say because I kind of put you under the bus for a little bit.
No, I think it was perfect. The thing that I want to, again, reiterate that Dustin's kind of mentioned here and there, don't know if you caught this, is when you talk about this stuff the right way and you say this shouldn't be 100% of your portfolio, you should keep doing your managed accounts, you should keep doing your IRAs. When you talk about all this stuff effectively and like, hey, this is just another allocation instead of your bonds, instead of this, this is how it fits into your portfolio. When you talk about it like that, you will have so little objections, if any, because you're talking about it the right way. And what does Gary Vee say that you said? Like, we have, millions of years of
BS sniffing capability.
What is it, 7,000 years, like whatever the real number is.
Yeah.
People 100% know this stuff. So again, just a quick story a guy had yesterday. This was a lead. As you know, leads can be very skeptical. And as Dustin said, literally, I always lead with, hey, I'm going to say a 4-letter word, and you're probably going to have a little bit of a knee-jerk reaction, but here's why we use this in your portfolio. Because remember how you said you were using dividends to create income for you of 6% or 7%, and you're trying to do this, and that? Well, what if we were able to create more income, more predictably and more guaranteed from that chunk of your portfolio in the future? Would that be helpful instead of having to use the dividends? And he's like, well, yeah, 100%. That's why we use different types of annuities. And he's like, huh, I've never heard that. So at the beginning of the call, I was like, there's no way this guy's going to do an annuity, because he was a dividend investor. He's like, oh, I need, 1.8 million from dividends in retirement in my total account to be able to create the income. And we're like, bro, you're not even close to there. So at the end of the call, it ended up being like, yeah, send me some of that annuity stuff. I want to put like 55% of my portfolio in there. But at the beginning, like, there's no way this guy's going for it. But it goes back to talking about it correctly. Here's your income. If you have your income, it lets you do more of your fund dividend stuff, your options. It lets you do more of that stuff that you enjoy because you're so good at it. Make them feel good. And then that's, again, keep it simple. It's not as hard as it seems.
Yeah, so that was the 3-bucket approach. I appreciate you guys listening to the Viking Way podcast. My name is Dustin Wiley, co-host David Fisher. And again, if you have a downline or a team, I would love for you to share this. And real quick, I'm going to promote my school program. We have a school program called Wiley Coaching, where we give out free content. We have weekly calls as long as you show up live, and classrooms you can attend to sharpen your iron. So again, appreciate it, and we'll see you guys on the other side.